A resounding slap echoed through the dead silent alley, striking the face of a man whose very name made the city tremble. She couldn't see the blood freezing in the veins of his armed guards. She was blind. But his terrifying revenge wasn't a bullet. It was an all-consuming obsession. For Anna Hayes, the world was a tapestry woven entirely from sound, scent, and touch. She had lost her sight 5 years ago in a devastating car crash, an accident that plunged her vibrant, colorful life into a permanent, unyielding darkness. Yet Anna refused to be a victim. At 24, she had built a quiet, fiercely independent life in the heart of Chicago. She managed a small, specialized botanical shop where her heightened senses allowed her to arrange the most intoxicating floral bouquets in the city. Her days were a predictable rhythm of blooming jasmine, the rough texture of terracotta pots, and the rhythmic tapping of her white cane against the pavement. But predictability shattered on a tempestuous Tuesday evening in October. The sky had opened up, dumping a torrential downpour over the city streets. Anna was navigating her usual route home, her senses already overwhelmed by the deafening roar of the rain, the splashing of tires, and the chaotic chorus of car horns. She turned down a narrow cobblestone alleyway, a shortcut she knew by heart, usually abandoned at this hour. What she didn't know was that this particular alley was currently serving as the exit route for Dominic Salvatore. Dominic was the undisputed head of the Salvatore Syndicate, a ruthless criminal empire that controlled Chicago's underworld with an iron, blood-soaked fist. He was a man composed of lethal precision and cold, calculating wrath. Just moments prior, he had concluded a deeply unpleasant negotiation in a subterranean speakeasy, leaving a rival bleeding out on the polished concrete floor. Dominic was entirely out of patience. His tailored charcoal suit soaked his jaw clenched, flanked by his heavily armed entourage. Anna was moving quickly, trying to escape the chill of the rain. The sound of her cane was muffled by the storm. Dominic's men were fanning out their heavy boots, splashing against the puddles. "Move!" a gruff voice barked out of the darkness. Before Anna could register the command, a massive, unyielding wall of a man stepped directly into her path. It was Dominic. He hadn't bothered to alter his trajectory for a civilian. Anna collided hard against his solid chest, the impact sending her white cane clattering uselessly across the wet cobblestones. She stumbled backward, the cold rain slicking her hair, a gasp escaping her lips. Instinctively, Dominic's hand shot out. He grabbed her upper arm to haul her upright, but his grip was brutal, a vice of bruised knuckles and raw adrenaline left over from his violent meeting. His fingers dug painfully into her delicate skin. "Let go of me." Anna cried out, panic flaring in her chest. The sheer, overwhelming dominance radiating from the man terrified her. She smelled rain, metallic copper, and a rich, expensive cologne, heavily laced with danger. "Watch where you're walking." Dominic growled his voice, a low, gravelly vibration that seemed to rattle the very air around them. He didn't let go. In fact, irritated by her struggling, he tightened his grip, pulling her closer to aggressively move her out of his way. In a state of total disorientation, feeling threatened and physically overpowered in a dark, empty alley, Anna's survival instincts took over. She couldn't see the tailored suit, the scarred, handsome face, or the 4 bodyguards who instantly reached into their jackets for their suppressed firearms. Anna wrenched her body with all her might, freeing her arm. In the same fluid motion, driven by a surge of pure adrenaline and fear, she swung her hand upward. Smack! The slap cracked like a gunshot over the sound of the pouring rain. Anna's palm connected solidly with Dominic Salvatore's cheek. Time seemed to entirely evaporate. The alley fell into a horrifying, suffocating silence. Even the rain seemed to hold its breath. Anna stood there, her chest heaving, rubbing her bruised arm. Don't you ever touch me like that." She breathed, her voice trembling but defiant. Behind Dominic, his right-hand man, Gabriel, had his gun drawn, the laser sight pointed directly at Anna's chest. A single word from Dominic, a single nod, and she would be dead before her knees hit the cobblestones. Dominic stood perfectly still. The sting on his cheek was a foreign, almost unbelievable sensation. No one, absolutely no one, had dared to strike him in over a decade. His dark, predatory eyes locked onto the girl shivering before him. He opened his mouth to order her immediate execution. But then he looked closer. He noticed the way her stunning hazel eyes stared fixedly at a space just past his left shoulder, unblinking despite the raindrops hitting her lashes. He noticed the slight, desperate sweeping motion of her foot on the ground, searching for something. He looked down and saw the white cane with the red tip rolling in a puddle. She was completely blind. A strange, unfamiliar current ripped through Dominic's chest. The murderous rage that had been boiling in his veins suddenly cooled, crystallizing into something far more dangerous. Obsession. He raised a single-gloved hand, signaling Gabriel to lower the weapon. Dominic slowly leaned in. Anna stiffened, sensing his proximity, the heat of his body radiating in the cold. "You have absolutely no idea what you've just done, do you?" Dominic whispered, his breath ghosting over her ear. The dark promise in his tone made Anna's blood run cold. Before she could respond, Dominic bent down, picked up her cane, and roughly shoved it into her hand. "Run home, little bird, before I change my mind." Anna didn't need to be told twice. Gripping her cane with white knuckles, she navigated her way out of the alley as fast as her legs could carry her, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Dominic watched her silhouette disappear into the foggy street lights. He touched his cheek, a dark, chilling smirk playing on his lips. "Boss," Gabriel asked, cautiously holstering his weapon. "Do you want me to handle her?" "No." Dominic replied, his eyes never leaving the empty space where she had stood. "Find out who she is. Find out everything. Where she lives, where she works, who she loves. I want her entire life in a file on my desk by morning." For a week, Anna tried to convince herself that the encounter in the alley was nothing more than a horrifying nightmare. She threw herself into her work at the botanical shop, letting the scent of eucalyptus and blooming orchids wash away the lingering memory of that terrifying, gravelly voice. But an unshakable feeling of being watched clung to her. She would hear the low purr of an expensive engine idling outside her apartment building at night. She would catch the faint, unmistakable scent of rich cologne and copper in the crowd at the coffee shop. She thought she was losing her mind. She didn't know that Dominic Salvatore was systematically dismantling her reality. Dominic's revenge wasn't going to be quick. A bullet was too merciful, too boring for a woman who had dared to strike him. No, his revenge was going to be total, absolute possession. He was going to take the one thing Anna valued above all else, her independence. He would slowly break down the walls of her safe, self-sufficient world until she had no choice but to rely entirely on him. The trap sprang on a Tuesday, exactly 2 weeks after the slap. Anna was at home brewing tea when the front door of her apartment flew open. Her younger sister Chloe burst into the room, sobbing hysterically. Chloe was Anna's only family, a reckless 20-year-old whose taste in men was notoriously catastrophic. Anna, you have to help me," Chloe cried, collapsing onto the living room floor, her hands gripping Anna's knees. Anna dropped her mug, the ceramic shattering on the floor. "Chloe, what's wrong? Are you hurt?" "He left me, Liam. Left me." Chloe wailed, referring to her boyfriend of 6 months. "But Anna, it's worse. He stole from them. He stole $500,000 from the Salvatore syndicate, and he used my name on the offshore accounts. They think I helped him. They're coming for me, Anna. They're going to kill me." Anna's heart stopped. Even in her sheltered world, she knew the name Salvatore. It was synonymous with death. "What, Chloe, how could you let this happen?" Before Chloe could answer, the heavy, ominous sound of boots echoed in their hallway. The door, which Chloe hadn't fully shut, was kicked open. Anna heard the unmistakable sound of heavy men entering her tiny apartment. "Chloe Hayes," a cold, professional voice announced. It was Gabriel. "The boss wants to see you, both of you." Anna pushed her sister behind her, her chin raised despite the sheer terror vibrating in her bones. "I'm not letting you take her anywhere." "It wasn't a request, Mom," Gabriel said. Rough hands grabbed Anna's arms. She fought, kicking and screaming, but it was entirely useless. They were shoved into the back of a luxury SUV, the doors locking with a heavy final thud. The ride was agonizingly silent. Anna held a sobbing Chloe, her mind racing. When the car finally stopped, they were led through a sprawling building. Anna could feel the change in the atmosphere. The air here was cooler, smelling of expensive leather cigar smoke and polished marble. They were pushed into a massive room. The heavy oak doors clicked shut behind them, leaving them alone in an expansive silence. Then Anna heard it. The slow, rhythmic pouring of a drink. And then the scent hit her. Rich cologne. Copper. Danger. "So," a low, gravelly voice echoed across the room, the voice from the alley. "The little blind bird flies right back into my cage." Anna gasped, taking a step back. "You, Dominic Salvatore." He introduced himself, the smirk evident in his tone. Anna heard his heavy footsteps slowly approaching. "You pack quite a punch, Anna. My jaw ached for 2 days." Chloe let out a whimpering gasp. "You know him?" "We've met," Dominic said smoothly. He stopped just inches from Anna. She could feel the heat radiating off his body, trapping her in his gravity. "Your sister's idiot boyfriend stole $500,000 from my family. The penalty for theft is death. The penalty for being an accomplice is also death." "I didn't know," Chloe shrieked. "I swear I didn't know." "Shut up!" Dominic snapped, his voice cracking like a whip. Chloe instantly silenced. He turned his attention back to Anna. "However, I am a businessman, Anna. I believe in debts being paid. And since Liam has vanished into the wind, the debt falls to the Hayes family." "We don't have that kind of money," Anna said, her voice shaking but her posture straight. "You know we don't. Kill us if you want, but stop playing games." Dominic chuckled a dark, vibrating sound. He reached out his knuckles, gently brushing down the side of Anna's cheek, the exact spot where she had slapped him. She flinched, but he caught her chin, holding her firmly in place. "I don't want your money, Anna," Dominic murmured, leaning in so close his lips almost brushed her ear. "I want you." "What?" "Your sister is free to go. Her debt is forgiven," Dominic declared. "On one condition. You stay here, at my estate. You will live under my roof, eat at my table, and belong to me until I say the debt is paid. You will give up your apartment. You will give up your little flower shop. You will give up your independence." Anna's blood turned to ice. He knew about her shop. He knew everything. This wasn't a random collection of a debt. This was a meticulously crafted trap. He was taking away everything that made her feel human, everything she had fought to achieve after losing her sight. "No," Anna breathed. "You can't do this." "I can do whatever I want," Dominic stated coldly. "Refuse and Gabriel takes Chloe to the basement. I hear she screams quite loudly. It's your choice, Anna. Your pride or your sister's life." The silence that followed was suffocating. Anna stood, frozen tears finally breaking free and tracking down her unseeing eyes. She had fought so hard to navigate the darkness of the world on her own terms. Now she was willingly stepping into the darkest abyss of all. "Okay," Anna whispered the word, shattering her own heart. "I'll stay." Dominic's thumb wiped the tear from her cheek with a bizarre, terrifying gentleness. "Good girl. Welcome home, Anna." The Salvatore estate, hidden away behind wrought-iron gates in the affluent Chicago suburb of Winnetka, was a fortress of terrifying luxury. For Anna, it was a sensory paradox. The air constantly smelled of fresh sea salt from Lake Michigan, intertwined with the sharp chemical tang of expensive lemon polish used on the antique mahogany floors. Her bedroom, a sprawling suite she was locked into every night, felt like a velvet-lined tomb. The sheets were woven from cold, crisp Egyptian cotton, and a vintage Steinway piano sat in the corner, a mocking reminder of the beautiful things she was allowed to touch, but could never truly own. Dominic's cruelty wasn't physical. He never raised a hand to her. Instead, his torment was a psychological chess match. He commanded her presence at dinner every evening, forcing her to sit at the opposite end of a massive dining table. He had hired a private chef, a man named Thomas, who had supposedly trained at a Linnea just to prepare elaborate multi-course meals that tasted like ash in Anna's mouth. "You aren't eating, Anna." Dominic's voice would drift down the length of the table, smooth as aged bourbon, but carrying the weight of a loaded gun. "The Wagyu beef was flown in from Kobe this morning. Disrespecting my hospitality is unwise." "It's hard to have an appetite with a gun to my sister's head." Anna would fire back her hands, gripping the edges of the heavy silver dining chair. Dominic would only chuckle, the sound vibrating against the crystal wine glasses. "Chloe is currently maxing out a black Amex in Paris, entirely under my protection. Your sacrifice bought her a very comfortable life. You should be proud." He was systematically trying to strip away her defiance, yet paradoxically, he catered to her blindness with a chilling obsession. Within 3 days of her arrival, the entire estate had been subtly modified. Tactile transition strips were installed where hardwood met thick Persian rugs. Sharp corners of glass tables were replaced with rounded marble. He even wore a specific bespoke Tom Ford cologne, a heavy blend of tobacco and vanilla, so she would always know exactly when he entered a room. He wanted to be the center of her darkened universe. Weeks bled into a month. The sheer intoxicating terror of Dominic Salvatore began to warp into something far more complicated. Anna learned the subtle shifts in his breathing when he was angry versus when he was exhausted. She noticed that the Ruthless Mafia boss, the man who ordered executions before his morning espresso, spent hours sitting silently in the library while she played the Steinway. The heavy, suffocating fear started to mix with an undeniable electric tension whenever he leaned in close to guide her hand or brush a stray lock of hair from her face. But the Salvatore Syndicate was a kingdom built on blood, and blood always demanded a toll. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. Dominic was away in the city, meeting with union bosses. Anna was left to wander the expansive, sun-warmed library. Her heightened hearing had become her greatest asset in the mansion, allowing her to map the sprawling estate by the echoes of footsteps and the distinct groans of the floorboards. She was reaching for a leather-bound book when she heard the heavy oak doors of the adjacent billiard room click shut. The walls were thick, but the ventilation grate near the baseboards carried sound perfectly. "Tonight, the shipment at the docks is a decoy," a voice murmured. Anna froze. It was Gabriel Dominic's trusted right-hand man. A second unfamiliar voice, raspy and thick with a New York accent, replied, "And Salvatore, he's isolated." "He'll be in his private study at midnight," Gabriel confirmed, his tone devoid of any loyalty. The perimeter guards are loyal to me. We breach the south terrace. 3 men. Suppressed Glocks. Make it clean, Russo. The Italians want him dead, and I want his empire. When it's done, the blind girl gets a bullet, too. Leave no loose ends. Anna stopped breathing. Her blood turned to ice. Gabriel, the man who had held a laser sight to her chest, the man who stood by Dominic's side like a shadow, was orchestrating a coup. Panic seized her. Her first thought was flight. This was her chance. With Dominic dead, the debt would die with him. She could run. She could disappear back into the safety of her quiet, obscure life. But as she gripped her white cane, the memory of Dominic's rough thumb wiping away her tear flashed in her mind. She remembered the way he had quietly ordered his men to clear the snow from the courtyard, simply because he knew she liked the sound of the winter wind through the bare oak trees. He was a monster, a ruthless killer who had stolen her life, but he was her monster, and she refused to be a victim twice. She had to warn him. The grandfather clock in the grand foyer chimed 11:30. The estate was eerily quiet, the heavy silence pressing against Anna's eardrums like a physical weight. She navigated the labyrinthine hallways with practiced precision, her fingers lightly trailing against the silk-lined wallpaper. She didn't use her cane. The rhythmic tapping would give her away. She counted her steps, 40 paces from the stairs. Turn left, 12 paces past the antique vase. She reached the heavy mahogany doors of Dominic's private study. She didn't knock. She pushed the handle, slipping inside and shutting the door silently behind her. I explicitly ordered not to be disturbed. Dominic's voice snapped from across the room. She heard the distinct rustle of heavy architectural blueprints being shoved aside, followed by the clink of a crystal decanter. Dominic! Anna breathed, her voice trembling but urgent. He paused. The anger vanished from his tone, replaced by immediate suspicion. Anna, what are you doing out of your wing? It's nearly midnight. You have to listen to me, she said, crossing the room until she bumped against the edge of his massive oak desk. She could smell the bourbon on his breath and the familiar tobacco vanilla cologne. Gabriel, he's betraying you. He's working with a man named Russo and the Italians. They're coming through the south terrace at midnight. He bought out your perimeter guards. Silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. For an agonizing second, Anna thought he didn't believe her. Why would he? She was his prisoner, a blind girl making wild accusations against his most trusted lieutenant. Then she heard the metallic, chilling sound of a slide being racked on a handgun. How do you know this? Dominic asked, his voice, deadly calm, stripping away all warmth. I heard them through the vents in the library. Gabriel said, he said they're bringing 3 men with suppressed weapons. They plan to kill us both to leave no loose ends. Dominic didn't ask another question. He didn't doubt her. In the criminal underworld, instinct kept you alive, and Dominic's instinct told him Anna was telling the truth. Get under the desk, Dominic ordered. The soft footfalls of his custom Italian leather shoes moved rapidly across the room. He was killing the heavy brass lamps. Gabriel knows the security codes. He knows the blind spots. Dominic, there are too many of them, Anna protested, dropping to her knees and sliding beneath the heavy wood of the desk. I didn't conquer Chicago by hiding Anna, he growled. Suddenly, a massive explosion shook the foundation of the house. The south terrace doors were blown off their hinges, the sound of shattering reinforced glass raining down like lethal hail. Gunfire erupted immediately, the sharp, muffled pft-pft-pft of suppressed weapons tearing into the study's drywall and shredding the priceless artwork. Dominic returned fire. The deafening roar of his unsilenced weapon was a stark contrast, booming through the room. Anna covered her ears, screaming, as a bullet ripped through the wood of the desk, just inches from her shoulder. "He's hit!" An unfamiliar voice yelled over the chaos. Anna's heart stopped. She heard a heavy thud, followed by a sharp, pained hiss. "Dominic!" she cried out. "Stay down!" Dominic roared back, but his voice was strained, breathless. Anna smelled it then, the sharp metallic scent of fresh blood cutting through the smell of gunpowder. He was bleeding. He was pinned down. If they had night vision or tactical lights, he was a sitting duck. A desperate, wild realization hit Anna. They were relying on their sight. But sight was a luxury Anna had learned to live without. She crawled out from under the desk, her hands frantically searching the wall paneling. She knew this room. Dominic had walked her through it his first week here, arrogantly showing off his domain. "The breaker panel for the east wing is hidden behind the portrait of my grandfather," he had said. "Anna, what the hell are you doing?" Dominic shouted. A bullet shattered a vase right above her head, raining porcelain shards into her hair. Her fingers found the edge of the heavy wooden frame. She shoved it aside with all her strength, her hands ripping open the metal utility box. Without hesitation, she pulled the master switch. Instantly, the entire wing of the mansion plunged into absolute pitch-black darkness. "What the—" one of the assassins shouted, entirely disoriented, as their tactical advantage vanished. "I can't see a damn thing," another yelled. For Anna, nothing had changed. The darkness was her home. She dropped to the floor, crawling rapidly toward the scent of Dominic's blood and cologne. Her hands found his tailored suit, slick with warmth at his shoulder. He flinched, raising his gun, but she grabbed his wrist. "It's me," she whispered fiercely into his ear. "Don't shoot. Follow me." Dominic Salvatore, the ruthless king of the underworld, was bleeding and blind in his own home. For the first time in his life, he had to surrender total control. He lowered his weapon and gripped Anna's hand tightly. With breathtaking speed and silence, Anna led him. She knew every dip in the floorboards, every piece of furniture, every spatial measurement of the room. She guided him flawlessly around an overturned chair, slipping past the disoriented assassins who were blindly sweeping the room with their suppressed weapons. She led him out of the study through a hidden servants' corridor she had discovered weeks ago, and into the subterranean safe room buried beneath the wine cellar. When the heavy steel door finally sealed shut behind them, emergency red lights flickered on. Dominic collapsed back against the cold concrete wall, clutching his bleeding shoulder. His breath was ragged, his Armani shirt ruined. He looked up at the blind woman standing before him. Her hair was wild, her hands stained with his blood, but she stood tall, an absolute goddess of the dark. She hadn't cowered. She hadn't run. She had dragged him from the jaws of death. Gabriel's Dominic choked out a terrifying, lethal grin spreading across his pale face. He made a fatal miscalculation. He forgot about you. By dawn, the coup was crushed. Dominic's loyalists summoned from the city had descended upon the estate. Gabriel and his men were violently eradicated, their bodies disposed of, before the sun even peeked over Lake Michigan. A week later, the estate was quiet again. Dominic's shoulder was heavily bandaged, his arm in a sling. He stood in the grand foyer, the afternoon sun streaming through the repaired windows. Anna stood by the front door, her winter coat on her white cane in hand. Dominic walked toward her, his footsteps heavy and deliberate. He stopped just inches away. The scent of his cologne wrapped around her, but there was no fear left in her chest. Only a profound, aching pull. "The debt is paid," Dominic said, his gravelly voice softer than she had ever heard it. "Gabriel would have killed me if you hadn't pulled that breaker. You saved my life, Anna. You saved the syndicate." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a heavy set of keys pressing them gently into her free hand. The deed to your flower shop. Completely paid off. A new apartment in the Gold Coast. And your sister has a trust fund that will keep her safe forever. You are free to go. No one will ever touch you again. Anna traced the jagged edges of the keys. This was what she had fought for. Her freedom, her independence. The cage doors were finally open. And what about you? Anna whispered, tilting her head up toward him. Dominic's hand came up his knuckles, gently grazing the cheek she had slapped all those months ago. I am a monster, Anna. I live in the dark. You belong in the light. Anna let out a soft, breathless laugh. She reached up her delicate fingers, finding his scarred jawline, tracing the hard, ruthless lines of his face. She felt his breath hitch the undisputed boss of Chicago, unraveling at her touch. You forget, Dominic, Anna murmured, dropping the keys onto the marble floor. The sharp clatter echoed like a gunshot, sealing their fate. I live in the dark, too, and I've learned exactly how to navigate it. Dominic let out a low, ragged groan, his uninjured arm wrapping around her waist, pulling her flush against his chest. He captured her lips in a fierce, consuming kiss that tasted of bourbon blood and an unbreakable, terrifying devotion. The blind girl hadn't just survived the devil's trap, she had conquered the devil himself. Did Dominic's ruthless obsession go too far, or was it the twisted spark of true love Anna needed to unleash her own dark power? Their story proves that sometimes the greatest strength is found when the lights go out. If this heart-stopping mafia romance left you breathless, smash that, like button share. Anna's incredible journey of survival with your friends, and subscribe for more pulse-pounding dramatic stories every week. What would you have done in Anna's shoes? Tell us in the comments below.